Hi class, today we are on Saxon Book 4, Lesson 35, which is naming mixed numbers and money. So two different skills here. We're going to start with mixed numbers. So here are some examples of whole numbers, 1, 3, 12. Basically any counting numbers, anything that we say when we count, those are called whole numbers, meaning we've got the whole thing, as opposed to fractions, which you guys have been talking about for a while now. Here's some examples of fractions. We have 1/2, 1/3, 4/5. Those are all fractions, meaning we have a piece of a whole. We don't have the whole thing. So today we're going to start talking about mixed numbers. And this is how we write it or spell it, mixed numbers. What a mixed number is when we mix whole numbers, say 2, with a fraction, say 2/3. So we read this as 2 and 2/3. We always say the whole number first, then we say the word and then we read the fraction. But we're looking at it as that is our number. It's got a whole number, it's got a fraction, so we call it a mixed number. So we're going to look at that here with some examples I have on the board, starting with this one. Here's a picture of 2 whole circles. So we're going to write 2, and then here we have 1 piece of a circle. So it's 1 out of 4 equal pieces, so the fraction would be 1/4. So this picture represents 2 and 1/4. Okay? The next picture here. How many whole circles do we have? 1, 2, 3. So we write the whole number 3. Then what fraction of a circle do we have here? You should have said 1/2. We write 1/2, and so then we read this as 3 and 1/2. And here is a picture that represents 3 and 1/2. Our final example of this type is right here. How many whole circles do we have? You should have said 4. And then what fraction of a circle do we have here? 1, 2 pieces colored in out of 3 pieces total, so 2/3. And then we read this as 4 and 2/3. Okay, so we're going to do more with these mixed numbers. You'll see them again in the future. But for today, that is all that our book has us doing, just looking at pictures and naming mixed numbers. The next part of the lesson is moving on to money. So we know that we can read money with a cent sign. Like we might say 324 cents. We're not often going to see it written like this. It's not technically wrong, but we just don't write it like that. If we have 324 cents, we know that for every 100 cents, we have $1. So 324 cents is really going to be $3.24. We read that kind of like we read mixed numbers. We can think of money as a mixed number, although we write it as a decimal. But we have our 3 whole dollars, and then we have 24 cents. How many cents does it take to make 1 whole dollar? 100. So it would be 3 and 24 hundredths of a dollar. But really, we read it $3.24. because we've changed the language around a little bit concerning money. So, you know we can use a cent sign. You know we can use a dollar sign. Do we ever use both. Is it okay to write that? No, that is never okay. You pick one or the other, use the cent sign or use the dollar sign. And like I said, typically if it is less than 100 cents, we use the cent sign, or either or really. If it's more than 100 cents though, we don't really write this. Even though it's technically correct, we write it this way with a decimal point and dollar sign. So the other part of this lesson is kind of cool. This is the lesson where we look at how to write a check. So I will tell you, when I was a kid, my mom paid for everything with checks. We would be at the grocery store and she might be writing out a check. And even more so than my mom, my grandma, I remember paying for everything with a check. Nowadays, we have those lovely plastic debit cards which do the same thing. They take money directly from our bank account. That's what a check does. Now, people very rarely use checks unless they're probably older than me. I don't even own a checkbook anymore, but I did when I was younger, before they had all these automatic debits and automatic payments that'll come directly out of your bank account. There are some things still that you must have a check for, because even though I don't own a checkbook, sometimes I have to go to the bank and ask them to print me out a couple of checks for my account, because there are some things, very rarely, but occasionally, that I can only pay for with check. So, to be able to write it until they become completely obsolete, we'll continue learning about them. A check has your name and your street address, and it always has a number up here. This gives us the check number right there. And then there's a place to write the date. So when you're writing a check, you fill in the date. So let's pretend this was my checkbook. So we'll write Mrs. D, and I'm writing a check. So the day that I'm filming this is October 28th, 2020. And so I have filled in the date for this check that I'm going to write. The next part of a check is it says pay to the order of. That is the person or the company that you're supposed to pay. So let's say I am going to buy some pizza and I want to pay with a check. So I'm going to pay to Pizza Hut. I'm writing this check out to Pizza Hut. That goes right there on that pay to the order of line. The next part is this box right here. That is where we write how much money we're paying with digits. So let's pretend my pizza was $33.42. I want to point something out here. I wrote it with digits, but then do you see how I filled in the blank place with a line? You do that so that somebody can't come in behind you and make this check out for a much higher number. They can't fill in digits behind you and move your decimal point. You put that line there. And then the other piece of security is on this line. We're going to write that same amount using words. So we start all the way over on the edge for the same reason. We don't want anyone to come behind us and try to squeeze in a higher number. Okay, so 33. That's how many dollars. I don't have to write dollars on a check because that's already pre-printed for you. So I just write 33 and then I turn my cents into a fraction. So this was 42 cents out of 100 cents to make $1. And then once again, I fill it in with that line. I fill in all the blank space. And the final thing on a check is we have to sign it. So I'll scribble my signature there. And then there's also a place here where it says memo. So I'm just using this for pizza. Maybe it's for a pizza party. So I might write party on the memo. If I were paying a bill, I might write what month the bill was or any other important information that you want to have on the check. Now that I filled it out, I would rip it out of my checkbook, hand it over to Pizza Hut, and they'd give me my pizza. So that is how you write a check. We have a couple of examples concerning checks in our book. So the first one is Anita is writing a check for her water bill. Show how she would write $15.25 using a dollar sign. So the first thing she's going to do is write it using the dollar sign, $15. So we write our $15 and 25 cents. We put our decimal and then write 25 cents. Okay? Anita needs to pay her cable bill as well. Show how to write $30.76 using words. So how would she write this on her check? She would write $30 and 76 cents. There we have it using words. Okay, the next example shows a check. I'm going to do this on my example check here. The next one gives us a check. It is made out to the water company, and it is for the amount of $37.80, and they filled in the box there, $37.80 to the water company. And the question is, how would you write the number using words on a check? So remember, with the last problem, we wrote it exactly how we'd read it. It was $30.76. But on a check, we do it a little bit differently. On a check, we don't have to write the dollars, and we turn the cents into a fraction. So $37, I would spell that out, not dollars, just 37. 37, and then we write the word and we turn our coins into a fraction. And here's how we would write it on the check. 37 and 80 out of 100. Okay, next example. Moving on from the checks. Kasim has 1 quarter, 1 dime, and 1 nickel. Write how much money she has using a cent sign. Then write the same amount using a dollar sign and a decimal point. So she has a quarter, 25 cents. Excuse my bell. She has 25 cents a quarter, plus she has a dime, so 25, 35, and then she has a nickel, so we're at 35, 40. She has 40 cents. So they want us to write that using a cent sign, and they want us to write that using a dollar sign. So if she has 40 cents, does she have any dollars? No. So we put a 0, then a decimal point, and then the 40, and don't forget your dollar sign there. Okay? The last example wants to know which of the following does not represent a quarter. So we have it written many different ways here. And you have to figure out which one is not really the amount of a quarter. So we have 25 cents. Is that a quarter? Yeah. Here we have 25 cents written with $1 in decimal. Is that a quarter? Here we have 0 and then a decimal point, 25, and then a cent sign. Is that a quarter? No, it is not. This would actually be a quarter of 1 cent. So this is the one that's not written correctly. We don't use decimal points with the cent sign. Okay, that was a whole lot of skills in one video. There are practice problems. I would like you to do them. I'm going to have you do them on your own though, because it's such a variety of problems. The lesson practice is on page 222 of your book. So open your book. You can do the lesson practice on a whiteboard or scratch piece of paper. If you're in my class, you have the answer key, and that also includes the answers to the lesson practice. So check your answers when you're done. And then you may begin your written practice in your book, also on page 222. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you soon.